Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for this week's Change the Image campaign. We're here with Yossy today to talk about her work and especially her work at London Fashion Week. We'll be going through the images on the screen and we are live, so if you pop your questions in the chat as we go, we'll try and answer them the best we can. So Yossy, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and the style of work that you do?
Hi, I'm Yossy. I'm a freelance photographer, and a lot of my work recently has kind of centered around Fashion Week and just street style, which has been amazing, and it's been such a fun experience. I think I've just really enjoyed kind of getting to meet people and just seeing people express themselves through clothes. So it's been great kind of being able to capture that, and just especially in London with there being such a wide variety of styles and people that you can come across. It's just amazing having that 1 week, where everyone really pulls out their best outfits. And then the next week you go back to London and it's everything's kind of gone back to normal. So yeah, that's been my work recently, a lot of that.
And are a lot of your pictures sort of taken on the official runways at London Fashion Week, or are you taking pictures of the sort of quite incredible people that sort of encompass London during that week?
It's been more so the people, so it's been kind of like running around to the different venues and kind of seeing like the kind of people that kind of appear. And it's so interesting because one moment you can kind of have like a celebrity pulling up and like they've come out with their amazing designer outfits, but then when you kind of look around during those moments, you can kind of see people that have really just kind of come from their homes. They're so into fashion, they're really excited, and they've pulled together their best outfits. Like you get fashion students putting their outfits that they've pulled together, but then you can also have like models that have just come out of shows and they've still got their hair clip, like in that picture, still have their hair clips in, have their runway makeup on. Yeah, it's so interesting the amount of different people you can meet literally just on the streets of Fashion Week.
That's incredible. So I guess what we'll do is we'll get the first question out the way that a lot of people are going to ask, and that is what camera you're using for these, because they have a really beautiful artistic look and feel.
Thank you. So it's actually really funny. My first camera that I used was my Canon 700D, and that was only with my 50mm lens. So it's kind of like one of the less, I want to say, people would say professional Canon cameras, kind of quite great for beginners, but I found it works so well during Fashion Week. And it's really funny how when you go to Fashion Week and you meet other photographers that have like the most up-to-date camera with the biggest lens, and I just kind of would be there at the beginning of my journey, sat there with my camera thinking, oh my gosh, like I've got the smallest one there, like how's it going to compare? But then you go home, you stick them through Lightroom, and there's just that really big sense of like being proud of how the images came out and really being able to work the camera, because it's not always about the camera, it's about the person shooting. However, I've recently have upgraded to a Canon 6D Mark II, and I've also got myself a new lens, which is a 24-70. So I'm able to zoom now, which makes shooting Fashion Week so much easier because you can have people running up from different angles, and like before you have to run over to one place, but having a zoom lens just helps you be able to move without having to move your body because so much is happening.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's so impressive that you took a lot of the pictures with that kit, just because I think it really showcases that it's about the photographer, not the camera that you have. Because the images are, they're absolutely beautiful. So I guess my next question for you would be, how did you first get into fashion? Or was it sort of photography first and then fashion, or was it the other way around?
It was photography, then fashion. So a lot of the time in the past, my sister blogged, and she would kind of pull me along and be like, oh, can you just take my photos for me real quick, kind of thing. And I used to hate it. Like I used to honestly despise kind of running around London taking pictures with her. But then there was one day it kind of just clicked and I was like, actually, this is kind of fun. And then I kind of got onto Instagram more and following more fashion related people and kind of branching out and being like, hey, I'd love to shoot with you. I love your fashion. And from that, kind of seeing like, oh, these people will go to Fashion Week. What's Fashion Week? They see all these cool shows, come across all these amazing people. And I was like, this looks really interesting. So one day I kind of decided like, do you know what? I'm going to try and find a general location. I'm going to go down by myself. I don't really know anyone, anything. Don't really understand how it works, but I just want to be amongst these people and kind of experience it for myself. And it's so funny because I'm such an anxious person. Like I really struggled to speak to people like a few years back. So I don't know how my mind didn't think about the fact that I would actually have to talk to people when going down, and asking them for pictures. But eventually I was so excited, and the adrenaline of like getting those shots was kind of pushing me to kind of try and talk to people and experience it. So after that went so well, and I met so many lovely people and photographers that were kind of like willing to take me under their wing, I kind of decided, oh, like Fashion Week is great. I'm going to try again. I'm going to try again each time it comes up. And it just got better and better as the years and seasons went by.
Yeah, I mean, it's really quite a skill talking to people in that situation, because they're normally in quite a rush, or they're sort of on their way somewhere. So how do you approach people for those that are sort of looking to get into a similar topic? Is it sort of photograph and then approach, or how do you go about it?
It can be a bit of both, where it's like, okay, so you see loads of photographers have kind of stopped someone. So for example, this picture here of Aquaria from Drag Race, there was quite a few photographers already surrounding. So it's just kind of like, like, let me quickly run in and get the shot as well. So you don't feel like you're bothering the person, because a lot of the time when they leave the shows or they're going in, it's like you have that quick moment before they hop in and out the car. But then there's other occasions where you can kind of see people, they'll be standing there. For example, models, they'll kind of just be smoking. And it's just like a quick kind of like, do you mind if I take a picture real quick? Yeah. A lot of the time people are willing, especially people that have kind of come down to Fashion Weeks themselves. They've made the effort. They're really excited. You can tell that they really would love to have their picture taken, just because they've put in so much effort, and it's really lovely to see. And then just kind of being really polite about it and asking them for, like, for example, their social media at, just so you're able to tag them so that they're able to have the pictures themselves, or they're able to use the pictures as well. It's just like a really lovely exchange a lot of the time, and you can kind of talk to people, ask them where they came from, because sometimes people have traveled from so far from Fashion Week, and it's just like, oh, like I wouldn't have known, or they'll tell you about the outfit, like they made it themselves, or someone dressed them, or they got that item from here. So yeah,
absolutely. And I guess my next question is along the lines of the type of people you photograph. So as we can see from flicking through, you also photograph a lot more sort of normal people that you would actually see during the day. And I wondered how it was sort of not always going after, because I think a lot of the press photographers will always go after the models. And what I really love about your work is that even when you have a model, it's always in a situation where they're having a cigarette and they still have clips in their hair. How did you decide to sort of steer your work into the direction of showcasing sort of the beauty in the everyday person?
I think it was from kind of being someone that for a while would look at a lot of other photographers' work, and kind of seeing, these people that were commissioned by magazines to cover Fashion Week, and seeing what kind of got picked up. And a lot of the time they would focus on like the celebrities that would be there and the celebrities that were wearing design, and it would be the same designers. And it's like, oh, like they look amazing, and they're going to look amazing. But going down to Fashion Week and experiencing it personally, you just see like, oh my gosh, there's all these other people like that you don't actually see getting kind of having their picture taken, or you don't see in the magazines, and they have put in so much effort. And it's just like, oh my gosh, this look is amazing. From like drag queens to like, people actually having like, what do you call them, doing like speeches and stuff like that. For example, there was one moment where I just was waiting outside of a show, and all of a sudden there was like a flood of people, and it turned out they were doing a talk on like why they want to have more trans inclusive fashion. And it's just like, oh my gosh, like if you've kind of focused on what the media puts out from Fashion Week, you wouldn't even know these things were going on. You wouldn't even know these people existed or were there. So it kind of clicked to me in that moment, that actually I would love to have these people on my page, even if it's just me and the people that follow me on my Instagram kind of seeing it. Like I would love to just be able to show that side of Fashion Week. And then you also have other people that are kind of campaigning for other things. And it's just like Fashion Week is great, but it can focus on the same people and people that look the same. When the great thing about London and the great thing about Fashion Week is that there's so many sides to fashion. There's not one way to do it.
Yeah.
And, these same people have the exact same amount of passion as the same celebrities that you see kind of wearing the same outfits and following the trends. You have the people that kind of go against that and want to be like loud and bold. So it's really nice to kind of be able to kind of have that option to do that and for it to be received really well to the point where it's just like, oh, okay, I get to cover this for Refinery 29 and put my spin on it and show Fashion Week through my eyes rather than like their eyes, if that makes sense. So yeah.
So how did it feel having sort of worked your way into London Fashion Week and going back a few times as well, really sort of persevering with the projects? How did it feel when Refinery 29 approached you and said, would you work with us on this project? Because that must have felt like you'd really sort of broken into that world with your work.
It was honestly, getting that email was so crazy. And it's such a funny story because the way it came about was with my photography, I work full time. I freelance with it because I haven't got to that stage yet where I was sure if it was worth taking the leap. So a lot of the time I would kind of recycle my photography and find different ways to edit. So for example, this picture here where it's edited in a sepia tone, I started to play around with different edits because with Fashion Week, you know, it's kind of usually clean, it's crisp, you don't want too much done to it, but I just wanted to play around and see how it went. And I tweeted, I think it was like 4 pictures in a sepia tone, and I'd done a bit of like maybe dust work to it, added a bit of filters and stuff like that. And for some reason that really carried on Twitter to the point where it literally reached one of the ladies working at Refinery 29 in America. Somehow it was retweeted onto her timeline, and they literally emailed me with the link to that tweet saying, hey, like, we love these pictures, Fashion Week is coming up, would you be willing to kind of cover it for us? Like, we love that. And I was just there like, of course. Like, as a it's like, absolutely, I am free, like, clear my schedule, I've got nothing to do. So that felt like a really amazing moment because it's like I enjoyed going down to Fashion Week for myself, but to be, you know, out of all the amazing people, kind of like I mentioned, with equipment and the camera and like the money to have all these things that I didn't, I was just like, I feel really privileged, and it kind of was like, okay, like, this is my push to keep going, like, there's a purpose, like, it's not a waste of time, you do it because you enjoy it, but there's also something that's coming from it, so just keep going. And yeah, from there it opened up so many doors, and it was just so nice to kind of go onto their website and see my name like being credited. I was just like, can't believe it.
Yeah, and it must be really wonderful as well to know that it's not just them commissioning you to do work that they want, that they're actually commissioning you to do your work of these extraordinary people and their incredible looks that's so different for London Fashion Week. So yeah, I mean, that must have been like really, really nice to sort of see and hear. And we've actually had a question coming in from In My Sunday Best. So they've asked, how do you decide to edit each picture differently? Is it sort of like when you get into the editing process? How do you sort of come about with your editing process? And is there a lot involved to
it? So it's quite a fast-paced process with Fashion Week, especially like, for example, if I was being commissioned to do the work because they want it sent like before the next day, so it's like a finish, go to all the shows, run home, load up the laptop process, where I kind of know for them there's a certain look they want. It's usually kind of like not too much done, it's very clean, it's maybe a bit of brightening depending on the weather on the day, so forth, and kind of send it to them. But when it comes to my own work, I kind of like to edit in my own way, and it kind of really depends on the feel. So there's sometimes moments where it's just like, okay, I kind of want a really dark mood because I feel like that suits the day. Then there's times where it's just like, okay, I think sepia would be a nice kind of look, because there's some times where I'm just like, oh, this would be a fun way to look at it. Like, it kind of looks dated, like Fashion Week years back, but actually it's very recent. So it really just depends on the mood of the picture on the day, and just kind of trying to do something different, because with Fashion Week, a lot of the time the editing can look the same, obviously, because brands do want that like clean look. So it's nice to kind of sometimes just do something that's very different, do a black and white edit, do a sepia edit, do something a bit more fun and just personal for myself. So it kind of separates, this is what I've been asked to do and this is what I actually would really want to do, and show Fashion Week through that way.
Yeah, absolutely. We actually have a lot of questions coming in, so I'm going to jump onto some of these. So the fabulous Skylight has asked if you ever do editorial shoots, and I guess studio shoots as well. Is that something you venture into, or do you try and stick with this really beautiful sort of street and documentary style?
So editorial, I do a bit of, and studio, but I've kind of, I guess through lockdown, have kind of been realizing what I do like and don't like. So street style I love, but it's more so in a Fashion Week kind of sense. I realized like shooting outfit of the days isn't quite so me. And the reason why I really enjoy Fashion Week is because it's almost personal and I get to kind of talk to the people I meet, I guess, and the outfits are kind of really thought out and there's like always a story to them. And then I've been moving to editorial now because it's also like with my photography, as amazing as fashion is sometimes it just reads as fashion to people. There's no story, they don't understand, it's just a pretty picture. So with my photography right now, I've kind of been trying to work into a direction where I'm trying to be a bit more editorial, but obviously I want to think about what I'm putting out sometimes. Because I do enjoy like throwing a pretty picture out, but sometimes I do like being able to kind of pair words and stories and things with my pictures, but without having to tell you too much and the pictures speaking for themselves. For example, like I think the main picture that was used for this was the protest with the group of women. Like it's a picture, but it says so many things, if that makes sense, without having to say so. So
Yeah.
editorial stuff is more so where I've been trying to move to, and away from like e-commercey, very styled fashion. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the images are really powerful, and I do think that they have a narrative in themselves. I actually was going to ask you anyway, how did it feel photographing the particular image on the screen now? Because I know obviously recently it's still going on, but in past fashion weeks there has been a lot of controversy about, you know, the way that people look on the catwalk and the expectations. How is it as a photographer to have to take pictures in those situations where people are quite maybe emotional, or they're, you know, they're quite vulnerable and raw? How do you approach that as a photographer?
It's almost exciting, I guess, to kind of see people like taken to the street and like just being like, do you know what, today's the day, like I'm really going to go out there, I'm going to get my message across. And it's just really very moving, I guess, to kind of see people doing it as well and like so boldly, because like there's so many things I believe in and, you know, I'm happy to kind of throw that out there on the internet. But to kind of go from like just saying these things to putting actions to words, like it's just so amazing. Like these women were so like I just inspiring, and just to kind of be able to see these messages, because sometimes carrying things along the internet and expecting social media to carry your message won't always work. It won't get things done. So kind of being there in person is just like, oh my gosh, now I know these ladies, I know they exist and what they're standing for. It's like I can help them carry that message by taking a picture. And this is one of my pictures that actually did very well, was received really well. And, you know, just being able to talk to them afterwards and ask them, like, I'd love to know more about it. And it's just kind of amazing to see like brands are slowly like picking these things up and like putting in the work to kind of be more inclusive, because obviously me being a woman doing photography and fashion week, and two, being a Black woman doing photography and fashion week, it's like I already have like I understand the struggles of kind of being heard and being seen. So it's just really amazing like to see these women, and then you also have people in the LGBTQ community that also are just like doing their part and like just being really proud and bold and being themselves, like just coming out, like just, you know what I mean, like just taking to the streets and just being like, I'm here, like this is me. It's just, honestly, it's one of the most loveliest things to see, because it's just like, especially when it's so well received by others and you can just tell they're in that moment they're really like happy. So it's just nice to be able to kind of take that picture and share that with other people that couldn't physically be there to see it, but can experience it through that photo.
And I think as well, you've captured them beautifully. I mean, all of the women in that photograph, they're lit stunningly and they look great. And I think that's such an admirable thing to do, is to not only photograph them, but ensure that the photograph is something that they would like to be represented with as well. So yeah, like it's such an incredible thing that you're doing. We've actually had a question quite similar to what we were just talking about from my time in BCN. Apologies if I'm getting these names wrong. They've said, I shot Fashion Week for many years and it's quite male dominated in the photographer's pit. And sometimes they feel the need to police female photographers. And they're asking if you've ever encountered this at Fashion Week, or maybe like you've encountered a situation where you being a female or being Black has influenced the way that you're trying to capture these moments.
Yeah, I've had so many run-ins where I think there was even one situation where like I think I was about to approach someone to ask them for a photo, and literally there was a man that literally rushed in and he grabbed the person and he took her across the street so no one could take a picture with her. And like it's just so insane the level some like people go to kind of just make sure like they get the shot, because I understand we're all working and we all like have commission and like we want to get the shot, but it's just like we're all here to do the same thing, we're all passionate about the same thing, we're all here because, you know, this is what we're being paid to do. So it's really stressful sometimes when people go out of their way. And you can also have those people that kind of just glance at like what you're taking your picture with and kind of just look at you and you just feel a bit inferior. But I guess it's just kind of having to push through that feeling and knowing like, okay, no, like, you know, someone as amazing as Refinery 29, like they picked me, like out of how many people they could have picked. It's like, no, people believe in me. You just kind of have to really push through and like just believe in yourself and know like I have what it takes just as much as them. I have every right to. And it's just also, yeah, it's hard sometimes. It's very obvious to kind of tell sometimes when someone's treating you the way they are because of who you are. But yeah, like I said, having those people sometimes, like having people you meet at Fashion Week and going with them can make the difference. But there are times where it's just like you are alone during Fashion Week because like there's so many different amazing shows going on. You've got people here, but you're here. It's just having to kind of like, why am I here? Focus on the people you came here to see and just ignoring them because they're always going to be like, they're literally always going to be there. And yeah,
I think if anything, it's a more impressive feat to get the pictures you're getting when there are barriers in your way. You know, it's easy if you can steal the model away and have, you know, like a solo moment to have a photo shoot, then yeah, maybe you will get the shot. But I think it's more impressive that you're able to get them whilst those barriers are happening and whilst you're, you know, fighting some of these photographers who can be a little sort of territorial, for lack of a better way of pushing it. So yeah, no, absolutely amazing. And then we've had another question from Ebony Ivory blog. How do you prepare for each shoot? How do you account for weather, location? And then they followed up with, what is your favorite place to shoot in?
Fashion Week is literally like, when I say like it's like a flurry, it's just like it goes so fast. Like honestly, it's so overwhelming. But in terms of preparing, I guess just the night before, kind of having to clear the memory card, charge the camera, multiple batteries, and I just kind of pick up a meal deal during the day because it's honestly so busy. There's no time to physically sit down and like enjoy a meal. So I kind of just like, I'm always running around with my little tote bag on one arm, my camera bag on the other, like weighed down by everything. I've got an umbrella just in case it rains. Like you literally just have to pack for every possible situation. But yeah, it's one where it's just like with locations, it's either when you're being commissioned, it's quite easy. Like for example, for Refinery 29, they literally sent me a whole list of places. They're like, this is where the Burberry show is. This is where this show is. Like if you can just like, you know, get there before so they can, you know, you can get people coming out, going in. But then there's those ones where I go down by myself and it's just like, okay, I don't know where the location is, but you'll have that one photographer friend who'll have that friend who'll have that friend who'll just pass it down. So it's like through the grapevine, you eventually find out. And then it's literally a group of us running onto the train, running around London, like physically running to be there on time and having to figure out what part of London you need to be in. Because one moment you can be in Temple at 180 Strand, where it's like the main hub.
Yeah.
And then next moment, okay, no, actually it's going to be in Tate Modern. It's like, okay, so now I need to go all the way over here. And it's just like, what train gets me here fastest? Which one's the right one? Sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, we've got on the wrong train. You can find out literally like minutes, like maybe 20 minutes before the show's about to start, someone finally finds a location.
Yeah.
It's basically one big workout for a week, and it's physically draining on the body. But again, when you get home and you look at the shots and you edit them and you're just like, oh, like it's so worth it, then yeah, that can be great. But in terms of my favorite location, I would probably say 180 Stratton, one because that's where you don't see a lot of celebrities, whereas you can also meet people that have actually come down for themselves. They may not have tickets to the show, but they've dressed up and they just kind of want to be papped and they want to meet people and they want to make friends, make connections, and it's really nice. And then also you have like some shows like I know think I've been around to Burberry's 3 times maybe to do street style, and I actually enjoy it because like the celebrities there and then having the models, like the models always look amazing after the show. it can be like just a really nice experience to kind of have.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think there are any locations that you haven't been to yet that you'd like to go to in future fashion weeks, or anywhere that you're really sort of dying to get these types of pictures at?
I think like maybe it would be amazing to like go into a few more like designer ones and like actually like experience the catwalks, because a lot of the stuff I do is street style, which I love, but it'd be like amazing to kind of see like how everything works in a cat show. For like example, like if I was to go into Burberry and shoot inside of that, like can't imagine how much different that would be, and like the other photographers and how they work and whether it's so friendly in there. And yeah, I think it'd be really interesting to kind of experience that.
Well, hopefully somebody's watching. So we've had another question from In My Sunday Best. Hello again. Would you ever do photography full time? And if so, do you think this would be the focus that you'd have?
This is something I've really like struggled with. So I've been shooting now for about maybe 4 or 5 years. And it's just been a thing where like I think with COVID kind of happening and seeing how that affected all the photography friends I had, it really made me think like, am I ready just yet? Like what happens if I kind of go full time and it just doesn't work out? But I think at some point I'm gonna just kind of have to take that risk, because as fun as marketing is, it's not where I'm most passionate. Photography makes me really passionate. Like we just went on a trip to France, and just doing the travel photography then and meeting people there, like independent sellers, and kind of taking their pictures and learning their stories and asking them if I can just kind of have a quick like talk with them so I can kind of pair some words with the pictures.
Yeah.
It's really nice. Like that's what my heart really finds. Like that's my passion right there. So it's just kind of taking that leap of faith and being like, do you know what, regardless of what happens, like I'm just going to kind of like go for it. So I've kind of given myself a goal within the next 3 to 7 years before I'm 30, basically, to have made that jump, whether it be I start my own kind of social media agency where it's just like I offer different types of photography, whether it just be fashion week, or I kind of like shoot for magazines and kind of do stuff like that and travel with that. But Fashion Week will definitely be something I continue to focus on. My goal for next year, because I missed it this year because I started a new job, is to actually go to Paris and Milan as well and see how it differs there, because I find that when it comes to seeing other people's coverage of it, it mainly seems like celebrities there. I don't think I see much like of your normal everyday people there. So it'd be really nice to kind of go to both of those and see the kind of people kind of like lingering around as well, and just being able to bring that side as well, and do all the bases, touch all the bases, even New York maybe as well.
Yeah, I think there's definitely an atmosphere that you see in Paris and Milan, and I can just imagine the incredible pictures you'd get there with that sort of style of them like smoking and drinking and relaxing after a shoot.
Yeah, exactly that.
See, somebody's asked what your favorite outfit that you've ever shot is. Is there one that sort of sticks in your head as like that was the perfect one?
You know what? I think one of my, I don't know if I have a favorite outfit, but one of my favorite people is definitely Aquaria. I think when it comes to like a lot of the drag queens, like it's just every day you see them. Like I think there was one period where I ran into Aquaria maybe 3 times in Fashion Week, but every look was so different, from the hair to the eyeshadow to the outfit. Like it's crazy. Like it's like a whole new personality comes up. So I think that's really what I enjoy. And then it's just like the makeup looks as well. Like some people really get out of their way, or they'll do one whole color from head to toe. Like it's just, I love it. And people can come in and they'll do different eras. Like some people will do like give you 90s, some people will give you like trends that are going on now, so you kind of get like the frills, the sheer material, the layers and stuff like that. But then you just have some people that will really just bring it back, or yeah,
they're stunning as well. They're just the sort of transformation between looks is always so incredible to see, just because you're like, is that the same person?
Literally. Or even like just between shows, like I think there was one time where it's literally like maybe a difference of 2 hours, and like it was a whole new look. Like it's just amazing how much people really prepare for Fashion Week and like really just pull things out the bag. It's yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it is impressive. We've had another question from Paul. He's asked, do you think that your childhood journey, the way you were approached in terms of like fashion or the people around you, sort of inspired you to get into fashion, or do you think that sort of developed later? I guess he's asking because there are some of us who have never been fashionable.
I guess so, because I run a fashion blog, but I'm not the most fashionable. I'm kind of someone that kind of just runs with trends. But I guess my passion for fashion kind of spurs back to my mum a bit, because my mum, when we would go to church every Sunday, she would always like make such an effort to get dressed up. And I never really understood why. Like literally, I would just kind of go into my room when I was younger. I would literally pull out anything I could find, and my mom would literally be like before we leave, like, come and show me your outfit. And I would just be there. She'd be like, no, like this is like you have to put in an effort and stuff like that. And I just never really understood. And like eventually, it kind of clicked. Like my mom kind of was just like, I want to present myself in a certain way. Like this is how I want to walk out on my Sunday. And it's just like, okay, like with Fashion Week, you kind of get the same thing where it's just like when I walk out this door and I kind of head into London, it's like, this is me. I'm wearing who I am. Like, I want people to see me and like, no, this is me. And this is what I'm passionate about. This is kind of what I believe in and I stand for. So I guess, yeah, it would come from my mum because my fashion sense is very basic. It's just the people around me and just loving that people are able to express themselves in ways that I kind of struggled with, from secondary school, and like things like even just the smallest hairstyles and kind of like being not picked on, but being every time I would change my hairstyle, it being picked up and it being made a topic of conversation. I feel like I can't express myself and wear these things without people always having something to say. So it's like, okay, like I'm not going to do this because like it's always going to be brought up and I'm always going to be stared at, looked at, and I can't do something without someone saying anything. So kind of running into these people who are so unapologetically themselves, it just kind of made me feel like, okay, like I actually, like, if I wear that thing, who's going to say anything? Like, if I decide to do this with my eyeshadow today, like no one's going to like fall down and die. No one's going to say anything. Like, it's just, okay, some people may look, but a lot of people are actually admiring you for how you've kind of stepped out that door. So then you won't even know, but they're admiring you from afar sometimes, like with Fashion Week, like, so yeah, I think a lot of that.
I'm a big t-shirt and jeans advocate, but I'm starting to think I need to get myself some frilly dresses.
After Fashion Week, and the way I would turn up there was like, I think my third day, and I was like, okay, I can't keep coming dressed like this anymore.
So I guess this leads on to a question that we ask a lot of photographers that we have on our live chats. Is there any shot in particular that you feel you missed, like one that just stands out in your head as I really wish I got that shot?
Oh my God, so much, especially when it comes to Fashion Week, literally so many. Like you run into so many amazing people. Like, for example, like one person that comes to mind who I always seem to mess up every year with Fashion Week is Billy Porter. Every year for some, like, I just know he's gonna appear, and every single time I see him in his amazing outfits, I just always seem to miss the shot. I don't know why. I think it's just because I'm starstruck every time. It's just like it just never works out. As well with like models and like celebrities, like obviously I do like to do quite a wide range of people, but I think whenever I do miss a shot, it tends to be someone that is famous because they're rushing in and out. But at the same time, it's nice because them rushing in and out also gives me time to see people that I wouldn't have like maybe focused on in the background. And it's just like, okay, it's just like actually it's kind of a nice reminder, like you're not here for them because like there's going to be so many other people that have caught them from so many different angles. What about the people that are also really excited to be here? And it just kind of reminds you like, okay, like let me be more diverse with my work, and show all angles as well. So it's painful sometimes when you miss those shots, but it's great also because it's just like, okay, like that was a stressful situation because when celebrities do run out, you see people pushing and like jumping on top of each other to get the shots, and it's just like sometimes it's not worth it stressing yourself up for that one picture when there's so many other amazing people. You could be taking like hundreds of shots in that time.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess my next question for you would be about what you want to do next, whether it would be to continue this project I know from your work that you're quite passionate about showing the variety of beauty that is at Fashion Week, rather than the stereotypical pictures that we'll see quite a lot during that time. And I wonder what your sort of next project or next move will be. Are you going to continue this, or are you going to look for something else to do that's completely different?
Yeah, so definitely continuing with this. But I think what I would love to do is kind of go a bit more into shows, because it's great because you meet a great range of diverse people outside of shows, because they turn up, they decide they want to be there, they turn up, they want to, share their message. But a lot of the time with a lot of big brands, they kind of pick their models, and when it does come to kind of shooting the models that do come out of shows, they look quite the same. So it'd be interesting to kind of see if there's a way from a photographer's perspective, whether we can start working with brands, and just having, I guess, more of an insight into the models and having those connections, and kind of, I guess, maybe hearing their experiences in Fashion Week, and like when taking pictures, kind of talk to them, seeing how things work on the inside. Because you do have those brands that are being a bit more diverse now, that are opening up the runways, and when they're doing their casting calls, and I guess just kind of being able to have connection with those brands that are really making the effort and showcasing their models and their stories. But also something that I've really been enjoying with my photography, as I mentioned, is meeting people. I love meeting people. I love running into people, especially when I do have my camera on me and I'm able to capture those moments. So a little project I've kind of just started releasing now is just kind of the people I run into on the everyday, especially when traveling. For some reason, I always seem to attract great conversations. And like when it comes to people that like own little stores, it's just like being able to kind of, I guess, talk to someone and just be like, oh, like, okay, what's your story? How did you get here? And like even this picture here, when I went back home to Nigeria, like there's so much you see in the news, but then there's also other amazing sides to Nigeria. So it's just being able to capture these moments and just kind of share that with people, and just be like, these are everyday people I come across, these are everyday situations I come across that you probably didn't know existed, but now I'm here to share it with you. Like, this is something from my memory to you. Just being a lot more personal with my work, like just I guess that.
Yeah, I mean, all of your work is beautiful. I guess I'd love to ask you a little bit about, so we've talked about your London Fashion Week work, but you also do a lot of other kinds of work, including the travel stuff that we're showing on the screen now. Is there anywhere outside of the fashion locations that you'd really like to travel and maybe tell more of the stories from?
Yeah, I mean, I've said I've done a little bit in Nigeria, but I would love to do like a proper project out in Nigeria with like creatives there,
Yeah.
because there's so many of us. And I guess just with Nigeria, it would just be so nice to properly explore, because when I go home, it's kind of like so focused on my family, but it's just like I would love to kind of bring more of my culture, I guess, and shoot properly, because it's so rushed. I don't feel like I ever get to kind of show what it's like back home, and just like a vivid image like this is, it's not what you just see on the news lines. It's like, yes, there is that side to it, but there is so much beauty and culture in Nigeria. Just kind of throwing a bit more of me, like where I come from, where my parents come from, throwing that out there and being like, this is it, like this is what makes me me. Like when I went home in April, I kind of did a little photo shoot with my grandma, and I was just like, this is the woman who started our family tree, like, and like showing how beautiful she is, how she makes an effort every day with her clothes, the traditional clothes. Doing stuff like that with my travels would be nice. And also just kind of, I guess, meeting people. And like I mentioned, like when I went to France last week, like I met a lovely lady who moved from Tunisia to France to kind of sell her homeware and stuff like that, and just like sharing stories like that, like people who, like my parents, moved from one country to another to kind of better their lives, and just being able to showcase that. I guess culture is something that I really love and would love to kind of bring more into my work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really do feel like these images, they show a really different side. You don't sort of look at these images and think, oh yeah, I've seen that in the news before. And they just look like the most amazing places to go and visit and to really enjoy. We've actually had a couple of comments come in, although they're not questions. But Tiana Jarrett Williams says, you're incredible and I love your work. That's really nice. And I'm really sorry about the pronunciation. I'm going to go for it. Adoranke says, well done, really proud of you, lovely, beautiful pictures.
Thank you.
We have a couple of questions coming in. So Paul has asked, how do you try to be distinctive with your work? So both travel and London Fashion Week, I feel like you can really tell what your style is, and you could probably pick these out as your work. And I wonder how you sort of got to this point in your photography.
It is, oh my gosh, with Fashion Week, it is so hard because you're literally standing like next to 5 other photographers. So like that, the picture you're taking, the subject is pretty much the same. So I think like, especially with Fashion Week, it became a thing where it's just like, I learned so much about like angles, like how, I don't know, twisting my camera this way a little bit, or just zooming in a bit or zooming out could make a mass difference from someone else's picture, or like deciding to, okay, I'm not going to get their face in it, maybe a detail, or their bag and their shoe and this part looks really nice, so going for a detail shot. It's just trying to think of all the things you can make the most of when someone's wearing something, I guess, in Fashion Week. Like like, yes, like a full body picture is amazing, but it's just like, okay, but you can see they've done like, oh, they've got a little bag and it's like a little novelty bag. It's just like, what kind of things can I pick up on the jewelry, the hair, things like that. And then especially with editing as well, like I mentioned that a lot of brands kind of want the same thing. So of course it's great to send them that. But again, like I mentioned, when it comes to editing, I do like to do my own thing, and kind of put my own mood. So like, for example, the sepia kind of edits, the black and white edits, you don't see as much. So it's like a nice way to kind of change things around, I guess, I suppose, and kind of make it stand out more. And I guess with photography anyway, you kind of learn to develop your own style over the years. It does take a while. Like sometimes I think to myself, will you be able to recognize myself from these pictures? Is it consistent? And it's hard because at first I feel like with Fashion Week and photography, you kind of try and emulate and copy the people around you because they're like, oh, they're doing really well, so let me try and do what they're doing so I can be successful. But you find that it doesn't do that well. And eventually, once you keep trying and playing around with things, people start commenting things like, oh, I knew this picture was yours before I even saw the username. So it then clicks like, okay, this is my style that I've fallen into, and this is what's doing really well, and people are perceiving it really well. So let me just kind of try and stick with that. And that's kind of how I got there. And then with my non-Fashion Week photography, it's just been literally, I just kind of play around every single time. It's kind of like, I guess it's the same in a sense of the way I shoot the picture, but I do sometimes change the editing style to kind of suit the mood. But I think I've got it down to a place now, I guess, where it's just like, okay, even if the editing's not the same, the style of the way I've taken something, you can tell it's me. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I do think your style is really clear. It's really sort of very beautiful, but also really unique. I think you could spot it from a crowd. So that's, yeah, I mean, it's stunning. We've had another comment from Heather that says, such lovely work. Thanks.
Thank you.
And then we've had a question actually about gear from JKG Photography. He's asked if you have a favorite lens or a camera that you might really, really want in the future.
So the lens I really love, I've only got the two because like I've literally been saving. So the one I love out of the two, I would actually have to say is my 27-40. It just makes such a difference having that zoom, and I think just the quality, like with photography and kind of like cameras, I did struggle with kind of knowing which camera to pick or whether I go for lens. And a lot of people would say to me, do you know what, it's about the glass, it's not about the body. And it's like, now that I've kind of changed bodies and like I have the two lenses to kind of play with, it's like, okay, I get it, like lenses make such a massive difference. And with camera, I'm quite happy with my 60 Mark II. I've had it for a year now, and I'm still kind of learning to play with it because obviously with COVID, I've just been at home, been shooting my own self at home, shooting my sister, using her as my model. So I haven't really had the chance. So going to France last week really gave me a chance to kind of finally put the camera to use and really enjoy that. So I'm still really enjoying that one, but I guess I would love to upgrade again at some point to maybe a Sigma, just kind of something a bit more lightweight that I can actually practice my videography with, because obviously the Canon 60 with the Sigma lens that I have, it's so heavy at times. It's honestly, it's like an arm workout. So potentially something that's just as good quality, but a lot more lightweight and easy to travel with.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I guess my final question for you this evening is, what's next for you in terms of what have you got coming up? What's on the horizon that we can see from you, if you're allowed to tell us?
So it's just, I guess, kind of working on my own personal projects. I had a moment with photography where I was just kind of sat and I was just like, what am I doing with it? Do I want to continue with it? What's the point? But I've kind of, these last few months have kind of been like a little revival for me. And it's just like, okay, like, no, like, I understand why I do it. And it's a thing where it's just like, I have fun with it. It's a passion and it's something I do want to pursue. So it's just like, I just need to get into the right frame of mind. So I'm definitely going to start bringing out all the projects I've kind of been planning over the last year and just kind of like just doing them now, like, because it's a lot of the time it's just like, oh, I'm just going to keep planning. Oh, I need to find the right model. Oh, I need to find the outfits. I need to find the makeup artist. And it's just like, okay, you have the time, things are open again, like what's your excuse now? Because I literally could find any excuse and just be like, yeah, I'm not going to do it. So it's just finally getting back to being active, being present, kind of, I guess, just bonding more with the community, because it's like I literally was off my photography page and I just wasn't present. So it's just kind of like, I guess, pushing myself back into it, making the effort and just kind of showing people like, okay, this is me. This is the personal approach I want to take now. These are the stories I want to tell. These are the things that are really important to me. These are the messages I want to put across, rather than just kind of taking on jobs because they pay the bills, but rather more now just putting out work that I really enjoy, because I think that's what took away from photography for me. I was doing it on a more so I want to be paid focus, and rather than this is what I want to take pictures of because I really enjoy it. So yeah.
Amazing. And hopefully we can bring you back for a wax masterclass where we'll follow you around for a little bit.
Fingers crossed.
Well, thank you ever so much for talking with us today, and thank you to everyone who attended. We have had a couple of comments, again, just compliments for you. Somebody's also said they'd love to see a photography workshop or maybe go on a walk with you.
Anytime, literally slide in my DMs.
Pop in there. But no, thank you so much. The pictures are incredible. It's amazing to hear sort of like about your process and your journey into photography a little bit more. For everyone who's watching, obviously this week we're doing our Change the Image campaign. So you can join us every day for the next couple of days to watch our talks with women who are leading the way in photography and working to change the narrative. So tomorrow we've got Anissa Dawuji, who's doing a workshop on people who are working with Muay Thai in the south of London. So you can find that on our YouTube, and if you missed any of this session, you can catch up on our YouTube too. But from me, have a good evening, and thank you so much, Yossy. It was great having you.
Thank you. It's been lovely. Thank you, everyone.